that has given England a real problem if they're going to try and qualify. They have 2 games remaining. Wednesday they're back here in Lahore to take on Afghanistan. There's actually a bit of rain forecast potentially for that, but that is must win really now. So is the game against South Africa in Karachi. Australia have taken the points, which is important for the Champions Trophy and their qualification hopes for the semi. But with Nasser and Matthew Hayden, that is a win against the old enemy. That's what matters most to get these Champions Trophy points, isn't it? some innings, some run chase.
Yeah, when you think back to Duckett's 160, it was always going to take something very special from one Australian. I didn't know if it was going to come so low down in the order. That kept Australian fans chewing at the bit. When you think about how they were in trouble, 2 for 20 inside that first power play was something to come back from. And the partnership with Carey, who's been in sublime form, that was a really magic stage of the match. So, yeah, some innings.
He used the pace, and it wasn't just the fact that he was using the pace, he used his brain as well, didn't he?
He did right from the very first ball. He got off the mark straight away with a boundary. He's arguably one of their better players of spin, and that's why he's been in the side and come into the side. He's in great nick, him and Carey. Carey's been in good nick as well on the recent tour of Sri Lanka, and they just were busy. The amazing thing with the run chase, usually when you see it 350 plus, you panic a little bit and you go a little bit too hard, too early, but they didn't. They were always up with the rate. They lost those 2 early wickets and didn't panic. That's an extraordinary win. I know they've got most of their batters here, but with the bowling attack they are missing on a surface like this, to keep England to maybe 20 runs below par. We all thought at the halfway mark, 20 runs more and England are well in that game. They chased it down comfortably. That is some win from Australia.
This is no excuse, and I'm genuinely not making an excuse, but you walked out to join us just a moment or 2 ago and you went, it's wet. The dew surely changed conditions a bit in Australia's favour.
Yeah, 100%. And that's right at the toss when you think back to the vision of Steve Smith at the toss saying, look, he thinks it's going to be dew in. They'd had a couple of training sessions ahead of this match under lights and there was dew. But I see this all the time in IPL. One side bats, so they're so determined to chase because they know on some venues, for example, like Bengaluru, that it's just such a different surface. Ball skidding on, they used a heavy roller. I asked both of you actually your opinion on that, whether it was a light roller or a heavy roller, but they chose the heavy roller. And Wardy at the time, he said, well, they'll probably just dampen the first 10 overs, hoping that the dew comes in later on. And that's exactly what happened. You know, it still doesn't get around the fact, though, that innings was something very, very special. To have the bottle to remain in the game for such a long time takes courage and it takes belief, something which you'd sort of think amongst Australian cricket teams they've had over the years, but because there are so many changes to this lineup, virtually it's a second 11 Australian side with all their superstars out.
Could England have done anything different in their tactics? They had issues. Cast didn't have a great day. We've mentioned the dew, and that affects the ball being gripped. Archer was off the field for a period of time. That said, could England have done anything different?
I think the makeup of the bowling attacks were very similar. So sort of 4 frontline bowlers and then mix and match 2 or 3 bowlers to get you through 10 or even more. And I think England did that as well. But the difference between the 2 sides, Steve Smith did it better and their bowlers did it better. How many of the Australian bowlers had a bad day? Nathan Ellis, I thought, was excellent. He went wicketless, but he only went at 5 and a bit, and then Zampa, and they all kept Australia in the game. The problem when you have that balance of the attack, if one has a bad day, or 1.5 as England, you're gone. You've got nowhere to go as a captain. So Cast has a bad day, Archer goes off, and then he's not at his best towards the end there. He's going round the park, and the drop catch, then you are really chasing the game. So that was the difference for me. The balance of the side was a gamble on a flat surface. Australia's gamble paid off because they all put in a decent, if not very good performance. England, with that balance of the side, you cannot afford one person to get injured and you cannot afford one person to have a bad day, and that happened.
We're pretty good at stealing players, you know, over the years. We had a few from South Africa. I mean, maybe we could just pull him back. Quite interesting there that Steve Smith said he never got out of first gear. He was in cruise mode. He scored 120 off 80-odd balls, not out.
Yeah, his back end in particular, I think he probably did go to overdrive. He maybe had a 6th gear, as what Smudge was trying to say there to us. But yeah, superb character. You know, it's when you think about your first 100 for Australia in a situation where you're chasing 350, that's a sort of career changer for you. in conditions like this, in a tournament as big as this is, if you are in a mental position to be able to score 100 there, it just sets you up for the rest of your career.
We mentioned the balance of England's side and how that can sometimes make things different in these conditions if someone's not on their game or someone goes down injured. Steve Smith had to fiddle around with the lineup of their side, losing those three terrific players with 1,700 international wickets between them, and he's got to fiddle a few overs. How did he go today to restrict England to something that, on the end, was quite easily chaseable?
I thought he was brilliant, actually. I thought, more importantly, the lads he turned to were brilliant. So on a flat pitch, quick outfield, Duckett going absolutely, Duckett and Root, two magnificent players of spin, and your backup bowlers are spinners, for them to come in and just not let England get away from them and just have periods of 3 or 4 overs. You're always going to go for boundaries here, but not let your head drop. Just keep going through your plans, keep introducing that 5th, 6th bowler occasionally, fielding. The Carey catch is brilliant, the fielding in the deep, and it was weird being on this outfield in between play and seeing England get 3-5-1 and thinking that may be 20 or 30 short. You've left a few out there, and as Steve Smith said there, we were actually quite happy chasing 350. So I thought the mixing and matching from Australia was better than what England could manage, because Bryden Cast had a bad evening, Archer had a bad evening in the latter part of his spell. England's fielding, the drop catch, wasn't as good as Carey's magnificent catches. And in the end, when you have two good sides like that, that's going to be the difference. Those small moments in a game, in 100 overs, those small moments cost you, and they cost England. And Australia didn't actually make that many mistakes today.
What will that do for the squad? Not just the 11 players that are on the field today winning this game, but you have lost those 3 senior bowlers. Mitch Marsh is injured, Stoinis has retired, so they're trying to find their way. They're on the big stage now. To pull off something like that, what will that do in terms of progression through this tournament?
Woody, I get the sense talking to the lads this morning that they were kind of in a mindset where they were just going to give it a crack. You know, I suppose so often that Australia comes to these tournaments and they've won 8 ICC tournaments, you know, so it's a big stage to arrive with a very big and rich history of winning. So this group, that I'd sense they sort of seize the opportunity to shine outside, you know, the big 3. Even the bowlers tonight, Ellis in particular, was his opportunity to be a frontline bowler for Australia, and he snatched it. Didn't take a wicket, but he was superb on a very good batting surface. So those signs. And Australian cricket will take that as a real compliment to its backup players, if you like. I mean, once you start removing Pat Cummins, Hazelwood and Stark, you can maybe afford to lose one of those and hope to win a tournament. But, you know, considering this performance tonight, that's a real moral booster for the side.
Josh Butler's just done the interview with Michael Atton. He's just gone up to do the written press. That's another game, another step, another lump of pressure that is upon his shoulders.
Yeah, as Haydos was chatting there, I was thinking England complete flip side to that. Australia missing all their players, the expectancy was there maybe today may not be their day. Maybe they will miss a bowling attack. I think England, the flip side was actually when Duckett was smashing it everywhere and got 165 and they're getting up towards 350 plus, you were thinking maybe England have found a formula. Maybe these conditions will suit England. They can't work out whether to play the extra batter, which they did today, and mean their bowling's a bit short, or play one of their bowling all-rounders, Atkinson or Overton, but then their batting's a bit short. I think recent cricket has shown the value of one individual, and that is Ben Stokes. You know, that Ben Stokes character and individual makes your balance of your batting and your bowling much more comfortable, and I think he's a big loss.
Well, I'm sure there's mixed emotions for Ben Duckett, who is waiting to come and join us. Come in between myself and Nas, because when both of us stand next to Matthew Hayden, it makes me feel very small. I'll say this, I mean, I'm sure it's mixed emotions for you with the defeat, but a majestic, magnificent 100 from you.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel pretty flat right now. I'm obviously happy to have, you know, scored runs, but, you know, it's just never the same in a losing cause.
Where did that second innings get away from you as a side, do you think?
I mean, I think first of all, you know, when a side chase down 350, you've got to give them credit. I think they played really well in those middle overs. I don't know, to be honest, it felt like we were 1-2 wickets away from, you know, potentially winning, you know, pretty easily. You know, I couldn't always, where I was fielding, see the lines we were bowling, but it felt like we were maybe cut a little bit too much on that wicket. You know, the one thing I spoke about was, keeping the stumps in play. But you only have to walk across here to see it. It did get easier. The back end of our innings, it felt impossible to kind of stand there and try and hit sixes. When Joss and Livy and those guys came in, and I think the conditions obviously changed. But yeah, I mean, we were happy halfway winning the toss and scoring 350 and getting Steve Smith and Travis Head in the power play. Things couldn't have started much better. I just think we were just lacking a wicket or two in the middle overs.
With the bat then, just explain how those conditions do change, because it looked that the ball was coming on very nicely to start with. Maybe that was the hardness of the ball. Then is it the sun beating down, the ball getting softer where it just starts to grip? I saw Josh occasionally just say, that stopped in the pitch. And then contrast that now, I mean, it is wet, it's going to zip on. It sort of evolves pitches in this part of the world as you go through the game. Explain what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, we were unsure how much it was going to change. I think chatting to the groundsman, he didn't think it was too much. But I think you could see the colour of the ball they had. Marnus just getting me out there, it was almost hitting the base of the stumps. Yeah. We tried the same things, it just doesn't quite do that as much later on at night. But to be honest, we scored 350. We felt like we were in a extremely good position to win that game, and yeah, there were probably just certain moments that we'll talk about that, what we can do better moving forward. There's certainly a lot more positives I think we can take from this game, and now we've got to wake up tomorrow and thinking about Afghanistan, and it's not a long competition. There's only going to be hopefully 4 games left, and it's about winning them at the right time.
I know you won't want to talk about your innings, but it was pretty special, and we've had a few conversations after games of cricket where, you could have gone and got 100. You got a magnificent 100 today. Magnificent. And that was what you were trying to take your game to the next level. And you didn't just get past 100, you kicked on. Yeah,
I mean, I think I was really excited when I got told by Baz I was going to open in this format. It's a format that I haven't played a lot of, and it's just something that I want to do. I want to score hundreds in this format at the top of the order. I want to score big hundreds. I want to score hundreds where we win games, and be that guy who wins us games. So I'm obviously delighted with the way I'm hitting the ball at the minute, and hopefully I can take that forward.
Just from a batting point of view, there was a couple of instances where Glenn Maxwell bowled pretty well to you and he'd kept it pretty tight, and then he managed to get him away for the final ball of the over for a boundary. Are you just saying, right, I can't allow him to get a dot or a 2, I'm not going to take a 2, I've got to take the positive option and put some pressure back and get that boundary?
Yeah, I mean, not all the time. I wasn't overly thinking it. I've obviously spent a bit of time with Maxie in Melbourne, and I know that he likes to go for a pole or 2 occasionally, and I think the beauty now is people are cutting off the sweeps for me, which allows me to hit straight. And on that pitch it felt like really early, actually I'm not going to sweep too much with the bounce being a little bit invariable, but I'm going to commit and run down and make sure I can hit the ball straight. And I think that's probably the biggest part of my game that I've tried to change.
I was going to ask you exactly that. You've evolved, haven't you? When you first came into the side, everyone saw the sweeps, the slog sweeps, the little dab sweeps, every sweep, and the reverse, and so they've gone squarer. But that does mean someone has to come up straight down the ground. We've seen you practicing a lot in the nets, running down and belting it over the top.
Yeah, and obviously in this format, that extra man up, it's so big. In T20 cricket, they'd probably still have a long on, and would I get run down as much? I'm not sure, but it's the beauty of this format, especially batting through the middle overs against spin. It always feels like there is a gap somewhere. And it's something that I'm working on. I might get caught mid-off next game, who knows? But it's something that I back myself to do now, and I've only got to clear the ring.
How do you balance it? Because obviously Brendan McCullum and the skipper wants you to be positive and attacking, and with Phil Salt. But you are also one of England's, with Joe Root, best player of spin. So you need to be in when spin comes on. So you're at the top of the order, but some of your value's actually in the middle overs as well. How do you balance, and have you done that well today? Do you think that was the secret, that you were in when spin came on and you went big? Yeah,
potentially. I mean, facing spin's a lot easier when you're 40 not out. When coming in the middle overs, it is tricky. I've done a lot of it in my career, but the thought process probably is facing the new ball in Test cricket, and I feel like I can certainly put, I probably wouldn't have run down and hit those first 2 off Maxwell if I was on 4, but being 40 or whatever I am on, you're already in. They want to come in and bowl a couple of overs where they, go for 7 or 8. But, the game's a lot easier when you're in, and I think that's the thought process behind it. And today, I was certainly not fluent at the top. You know, it's probably my slowest power play I've had, but I knew in my head that, you know, they were going to bowl a lot of spin through those middle overs, and it was spin that I could target.
Just finally, the challenge for you is set out. You've got to beat Afghanistan, got to beat South Africa and see what happens. But how much of just watched Joss come back from the press conference up there? He looks a bit disconsolate. Do you have to put your arm around the captain? Because, you know, he says he's practicing his smile. There wasn't a big smile when he was just walking back over there to the dressing room.
No, and, you know, completely right. You know, we're all feeling the same thing. You know, we're in a competition and we've lost the first game, and, you know, against Australia, it's always amazing playing against Australia, and it's a side that we always want to beat. And I think the frustrating bit today is we've probably played some very good cricket for a lot of it. You know, it's not just going to be Joss, we're all going to be hurting. But the beauty of this format is it's a short tournament, and we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll get ready for Afghanistan.
Well played to you, bad luck on the result. Appreciate your time though, thanks very much,
guys.
Ben. Thank you,
Ben.
appreciate
Cheers.
it. He does look a bit down in the dumps, Joss. I don't know if you were seeing, because you were asking the questions to Ben Duckett. We touched on it. It's going to add more pressure on him, but what England have to do from now on in is pretty straightforward. Afghanistan, South Africa, and then see.
Yeah, and as Ben Duckett just said there are lots of good things today. From what the performances I've seen, where they've lost their last 4 bilaterals, and since the last World Cup, their win percentage has dropped to 29%. They are way down from where they need to be. They have played poorly. Today they played a lot of really good cricket, actually. And it will hurt, because they played a lot of good cricket, and they'd have been feeling today at times, you know, Ben himself said it, you'll forget about India if we go on and win this tournament. And there were periods in today's play where you watched this England side and went, maybe in these conditions, with this batting lineup, maybe, you know what, they could do. And they got up to 3-5-1, and you thought maybe they could do. But you're coming up against Australia, you're coming up Afghanistan, who beat them last time, and you then got South Africa, who are playing a lot of good cricket. He will be down, he is under pressure, he cannot afford, this is Jos Buttler, he cannot afford another poor tournament. He's got to lift himself, he's got to lift his own game. Yep. He was part of that little drop-off there towards the end, him and Livingston, the 2 finishers. If they'd finished properly, England may well have got 370, 380, and that might have been a bridge too far for Australia. So it is a very difficult period for Jos Buttler. That's the game, that's being captain. OK, what's the challenges for Australia going forward? 2 more games, obviously South Africa, then Afghanistan, taking a big stride forward with these 2 points because it's so condensed nonetheless.
You know, a little bit like England, even though you found yourself on the wrong side of, you know, the result today, I think it's just about really playing consistent cricket, you know, finding a consistent formula. So much one-day cricket is played just from a strategic point of view, and England have found their mark today. 350, you're winning 9 out of 10 matches, getting 350. For Australia, chasing down that will be obviously a huge confidence boost, but it'll only be as good as what it is that they can perform now in a consistent manner. So, you know, you got Smith, that's at 3. I think that's, you know, something that he'll need to really, you know, find his tempo early in this tournament. It was good to see Nasser Hussain, for example, who's been really struggling for his form, get amongst some runs today, also with the ball, and always contributes in the field. I think consistency in the field, right? Today, Australia were brilliant. You know, so to me, the defensive sides often win tournaments. When you think about the success Australia's had, it's always benchmarked itself in its fielding efforts, and so more of that to come. And then from a bowling point of view, I guess it's just really, again, Ellis leading the attack. You know, they might chop and change, you know, with Abbott missing out today. They might bring another right-hander into play. So lots to sort of think about. Consistent cricket, simplify it through the tournament, and really just field your backsides out.
Hey, Dos, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Nasser, we shall see you soon as well. So Australia take the points here in Lahore.